Señor, abre mis labios y mi boca proclamará tus alabanzas. Lord, open my lips and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. Amen. Amen. I started going to Honduras about 15, 16 years ago now, and trained many different teams. Every diocese I was ever in, we formed a team and went to Honduras. So when I got here, of course, we formed a team, and I understand now it's been our 6th year of going to Honduras. But when we were first going, I tried to give a picture of what Honduras was like to the people who were going to be going, so that they would be kind of acclimated before they got there. And one of the things that I told them was that they had to be very careful about the dirt, because the dirt was very dirty. And they kind of looked at me and it's like, yes, the dirt is dirty, so you have to be really careful with this dirt, because it's not like other dirt. This is dirty dirt. So we still joke about that from time to time. And today's gospel has a lot to do about dirt and soil and so forth. And I kept trying to imagine, what is the good soil? I mean, there's the rocky soil and the soil that's, choked by the thorns and weeds and so forth. I have a sign in my garden that says the Garden of Weeden. But Jesus was trying to get an idea across. And Jesus was just so magnificent at getting people's attention, because what he taught by telling stories. And this parable of the sower is one of those stories that Jesus used that just captivated people's imagination. He was trying to paint a picture of what it looks like to have good dirt, good soil. And he says it yields a lot. We have lots of gardeners here in our parish, and I've been very blessed to learn a lot about gardening from the people in the parish. But one of the things that happened, and to my surprise, that this is my 8th year with you all, so I'm like, wow, 8 years. But the first 3 years, it took a while for me to grasp what Fred Bolton was doing when he cut the roses so badly. Every year he trimmed the roses so far back, I thought for sure he'd killed them. It was just impossible to me to believe that something was going to grow after he pruned them down that much. He did a lot of work in preparing the soil and so forth. And of course, they did grow. But it took about 3 years for me to not fear every time he did that they will actually grow back. And Ned and Elizabeth aren't quite as severe at the pruning, and so I'm not quite as shocked when I see it. But the fact is that you've got to do that. Well, soil also has to be prepared. And I learned from Sue Phelan how to make good soil by composting and so forth. We've had workshops here on how to compost. And so preparing the soil is not something that happens all by itself. You have to work at it. And so Jesus was saying to his people, good soil looks like this. And so I started wondering, okay, in our context, in our midst right now, what does good soil look like? I think we can set aside for a moment what the bad, rocky, weedy soil produces. But let's focus on what does good soil produce. What does it look like? Well, one way of imagining or picturing what good soil looks like in the real and hard and fast facts of life that we live in now looks like the border at Texas, where thousands of children, women, are coming across the border. And the Diocese of West Texas, which is my home diocese, not a liberal bastion by any stretch of the imagination, has decided that they're going to greet these refugees with food and water and prayers and hugs and so forth. And so the Diocese of West Texas runs just about the whole Texas border. So it's a pretty good stretch. And the churches of the diocese along the border are being very hard hit by this situation that is growing. And they've decided that they are going to use their good soil to open their hearts and their arms and their resources as much as possible to help with compassion these folks that are coming across the border. Now, this is not for them a political question, even though religiously they're very low church. Bishops don't wear mitres, they're very low church. They're conservative theologically, they're conservative politically. But in this case, this is about humanity. This is about compassion. This is about bringing that good soil out. Now, there was a picture on the internet, lots of pictures, but this one picture really caught my attention. It was a picture of the surface of Mars with 3 planets in alignment. There was the picture, the camera from Mars, then there was Earth, and then there was Venus, and then there was Mercury. And you could see these 3 planets from the surface of Mars. We have a picture of these planetary alignments from the surface of Mars. Now, wrap your head around that. Isn't that amazing that we can accomplish something like that? To be on the surface of Mars and take a picture of 3 other planets and then send it back to us so we can see it. Now, tell me that humanity who is capable of that kind of enormous advancement can't open hearts, can't open arms to compassionate suffering. When you look down on earth, when God looks down on earth, there's no lines on maps. There's no lines on the countries. There's no borders. There's humanity, there's creation, there's ocean and land and so forth, and us. So God is saying to us in this gospel, be the good soil. Be my kingdom as I picture it, with no lines, only compassion and open-heartedness to take care of a human crisis that is going on right now. Now, there are others at the border with signs, some with guns, and go home and so forth. So, which soil do we want to be? We want to be the good soil. We want to be that fruitful soil that yields so much. Because, you see, we have a challenge in our church, in all of Christianity, but particularly in organized churches like ours. I like to tease people who say they don't like organized religion, and I say, well, you should be an Episcopalian because we're pretty chaotic. The media focuses on whatever error we might have committed, or some controversy that might be coming up. So the people outside our doors have a rather sketchy opinion of what we do. You are the only advertisement that we have to counteract that message of weeds and rocky soil and so forth. We're the good dirt. We have to show that yield of good dirt, of openness and compassion. That's us. That's our job. So we have to prune those things that keep us from being that good soil. We have to cultivate things in our minds and our hearts that will help us yield that amazing capability that we have, that could put a camera on the surface of Mars and take a picture and send it back to us. We are capable of such glory And so Jesus is painting this picture in this story of being the good soil, being the good earth. Now, closer to home, what does that look like? Well, in our own families, we have to be the good soil. Things happen in our families. And trust me, my family's 300 strong, and I'm living way over here, so I don't often get into family squabbles, except on Facebook. We have quite a controversy going on, my grandnephew and I, about gun control. He loves guns, I don't. And so we're kind of going back and forth on that one. But the challenges of families are the training ground. What we do with that are the training ground of how we manage other parts of our lives. If stuff happens in our families and we're not able to forgive and reconcile, and if we're not the first ones to try to reach out, we're not preparing our soil for that fruitful abundance to give. It might be even easier to have compassion on people on the border or people outside of our family than to have that kind of ability to forgive something that happens right inside of our family circle. So I saw this saying on the internet somewhere. I didn't say it quite right at the 7:30 service, so I went and looked it up and I wrote it down so that I wouldn't mess it up. So it says, the first to apologize is the bravest. The first to forgive is the strongest. And the first to forget is the happiest. God is waiting for us to fix our soil, to be that ground from which wonderful things can spring. There's a whole community out there that is not getting the message about what we have to offer, about what God has to offer, and it's evident in how we behave. So we have to get our pruning shears out, and as painful as it might be, we might have to prune off some stuff that is interfering with us becoming that good soil that yields so much. It's hard, it's painful. But without that, without clearing away the obstacles, the bad stuff, the weeds, the rocky soil, we can't dig in and get that rooted, wonderful message that God gives to us, that He shows us with such love, giving us the ability of accomplishing so much. We can do it. But we've got to begin here with our families, with our community, with our country, with all of the world. But it starts here. We have to become that good soil in our everyday lives.